And we should be live. Hang on a minute. It says, refresh that. There we go.
It's live.
All right. Yep. All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 7 of IoT Happy Hour. We are joined this week by, I think, mostly people I've seen hanging out with us before, but let's go around the room to say hello and see who we've got on the stream today. I'll go down the list in the order I see them. Alan, you're up first. Give a quick hello.
Hey everyone, I'm Alan, one of the hardware hackers here at Balena, making cool projects to show off the platform.
Yeah, that thing next to you we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes.
Do you mean
Andrew,
me?
you're next.
Oh.
Me?
Yeah.
Hey everyone, Andrew Nem, lead content strategist at Balena. Missed you all last Friday. I thought I'd take a day off and work on a cool project. I ended up working on a non-technical project though, so I'm a complete failure in that regard. Great to see everyone.
Cool. Anuj.
Hey guys, I'm a hardware engineer at Balena. Today was actually Hack Friday at Balena, so I actually ended up working like the hardware hackers on a project, a very fun project.
Do you mean really hard? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it was actually a little hard because there were some unexpected things. But yeah, hopefully future topic for IoT Happy Hour.
Okay, cool. Can you say what it was? Is it top secret or
no,
what was it?
I was actually tweeting about it, so there's nothing secret about it. So we got a DSLR camera connected to a Raspberry Pi, and we were remotely clicking pictures. So me and Giovanni were working on it, and it actually ended up like that because Giovanni did not have his camera cable, so he was actually working on the setup in my house when I was having my lunch and dinner.
Awesome.
So it's like remote DSLRs.
Very cool. All right. Next up, I see John.
Hi, everybody. I'm John Tonello. I'm technical marketing lead here at Balena. Like Anuj, I was planning a couple of projects today. One is the one we're about to do, which won't take me that long. The other is I want to tweak the Balena Sense project that I expanded to port data into a single InfluxDB instance for overlapping Grafana views of all my various devices and tweaking it a little bit. And I should add, if anybody has a smart thermostat, I have an ecobee, which I also integrated into that project. So I have more temperature and humidity data that I know what to do with.
All right. Well, sounds like our first call out to the audience. Anybody out there have a smart thermostat? We might need some assistance on that one.
Actually, ecobee has excellent API stuff, and you can pull in all sorts of data from ecobee smart devices, and I'm sure the same is true for Nest and other devices. But
interesting. All right. Well, might need to focus on that in a future episode.
Lots of delicious data.
All right. And then the last one is Phil.
Last one.
Yep. Well, hey, alphabetically. I'm looking at the list alphabetically.
So I'm Phil. I'm one of Balena's bald people. I'm also in the hardware hacker team. So I don't know if people in the audience kind of know what hardware hackers are. I didn't even know that was a job title until I found Balena and looked what jobs are available, because I was sort of desperate to join when I saw the cool project, the product. So hardware hackers, we're sort of like the power users, where we try and eat our own dog food. Is that the term? That's sort of our job.
Drink your own champagne. It's another.
God, I wonder what you're about to say. Yeah.
I thought it was
so
Kool-Aid.
we kind of make cool projects and put them out on repos so that people can play with them themselves and use them. And in doing that, we kind of find things that could be made better in the product, or things that don't work, or perhaps documentation that could be improved, or all manner of things by using the product ourselves. We really put it through its paces, but we're kind of friendly to the people who make it in the background, so we can go and talk techie to them and talk non-techie to non-techies. We're sort of everybody's friend. That's our job. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, very cool.
You all break stuff.
Yeah.
We break stuff. Yeah. And so this week I've been trying to get my first blog post out, which I did with everybody's help.
Woo!
Go team.
Round of applause.
Awesome.
And,
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that in a couple of moments.
And I've also been trying to steal John's thunder with the multiple things going into Grafana project. I've been trying to get there first so that he can't show his off.
That's a new segment we're experimenting with. Will it fit in Grafana?
Yeah.
Everything's a race, and I'm going to win, John.
Everything is in Grafana.
It's one of the downsides of open source is thunder stealing.
Yeah. What I did is I made a tag for mine called On the Map, and then everybody wanted to be on the map. It's just marketing, John. You just follow my lead, mate.
Yeah, mine
Awesome.
was a sentence. It wasn't as
Yeah.
But
All right.
mine is fundamentally better. But I'm sure we're all interested in seeing yours, Phil.
So, moving on.
It's gonna be an episode in the future, like some sort
Moving on
of
from this competition.
Grafana Wars.
dashboard dance
A
off.
couple of quick talking points for the group. Did anybody? I know Anuj had mentioned he was doing some camera work. Did anybody get any other new parts this week? Anything else kind of on your workbenches? Anything new and exciting arrive from the mail?
I got it's not really a work thing, but I got like a USB audio interface so that I could plug my guitar in and a proper microphone, because Alan's got a cool microphone and I wanted one, so I bought one.
Okay, so balena band, got it.
Yeah,
Nice.
why not? Yeah, and I recorded myself saying testing 1 2 3 a lot. That's what I've achieved with it.
All right, so you made some
Excellent.
progress. That counts.
I was looking to acquire a new webcam to go with this project that we're about to talk about, and discovered, boy, when you're shopping for webcams during the pandemic, they're expensive.
Yeah.
They can be very expensive, sadly. But I was able to head over to Newegg and find some perfectly suitable devices. Just avoid Amazon for this kind of acquisition. They're out there.
All right.
You don't have to spend $200, as Phil told me.
All right. Well,
my friend Phil.
Damage is done, mate.
So, quick reminder for the audience. I see a couple people are already joined in and watching. If you have any questions, drop them into the YouTube chat. Andrew, I think you're taking a look at those. Anything that comes through, by all means, relay them in and we'll get answers for any folks that have questions. And before we get on to the details of that giant, it looks like a traffic light sitting in front of Alan, I'm wondering, so it's an LED alerter status, which essentially means whether you're busy or you're not busy. I'm not sure what the yellow is. I guess you're about to be busy, but what else can I do with this thing? I kind of have this idea in mind where I stick a whole bunch of them in my front yard and just annoy my neighbors and just like randomly change the lights. What other uses you think we could get out of this? Anybody got?
I have a couple, of course, because I've had this thing sitting in front of me for 2-3 weeks, so it makes one think, what else? But it is a web-controlled LED light, basically. So there's a lot you could do with it. But one thing I wanted to do was I'm a plane geek. I like watching airplanes. So I was going to maybe connect this up with some kind of ADSB and have it flash and beep when a type of plane that I want to see gets close enough that I have enough time to go to the window and look at it. So that would be my red. Like if a really cool plane, yellow would be like, yeah, I'd like to look at that plane, but I won't be upset if I miss it. So that's one of my ideas.
Green is just your typical Cessna.
Yeah, or 737 is going by. A big deal.
That's pretty
Have you
Cool.
given us the foundation for perhaps, like at-home web-controlled LED light kind of setup if you wanted to have like touch screens around the house or something to, do something fancier than the light switch?
Yeah, well, you have the control on a web page. So you have this web page that you can control the lights with. And as I'll get into later, it's actually using a relay board to control these lights because they have high current, can't be controlled directly. So with those relays in mind, you could really control anything: household lights, garage doors. With a beefy enough relay, you could really control almost anything.
Cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's actually a pretty good transition point then. I want to take a deeper dive into this thing that you've built. We've kind of played around with it for a few weeks, tortured and tormented you in the past, buzzing and beeping it from literally all over the world. But we haven't had a chance to actually dissect it and go through the process of how you built it, some of the initial steps, what the prototypes looked like. So I do want to kind of dive deep into this thing. I think I remember you saying that the final product that is sitting in front of you, the actual LED stack, was something that you were able to purchase from off-the-shelf parts. But I'm a little bit more interested in how did we get to that product? Can you show off or talk through a little bit about what the initial prototyping looked like?
Yeah, sure. So, there's two sides to it. There's the hardware and the software. So if we look at the hardware side, and again, this is not particularly complex. There's obviously a much more complex system. So prototyping here is kind of relative because it's not that complicated. But I'm going to switch cameras and show off the initial breadboard here that was used. So this is a really simple layout because no matter how this was going to turn out, you know that you're going to use the GPIO pins on the Raspberry Pi to control LEDs. And that's a really simple project. You can find many examples of that on the web, and it's a really good starter project. So we've also included in our blog post the diagram about how to do this layout. If you have nothing else besides a few LEDs, resistors, wire, and breadboard, so this is about maybe $7 worth of parts right here, not including the Raspberry Pi. But we put the instructions on here. If you wanted to just try this out and do web-controlled LEDs, this is the minimal build right here. So this was the very initial proof of concept. So what you have right here is the full project being able to control 3 LEDs with a minimum of parts. And this is probably my starting point for saying, yeah, it works. And once you have this set up, you can really start working on the software part of it, because that's just, the software is just controlling these GPIO pins, applying voltage at the right time, depending on your input. Once that's done, the hardware can really change considerably, as we'll go through.
Interesting. So, I mean, a couple of LEDs, a breadboard, you said maybe $7 worth of parts. I see that you have it hooked up to a Raspberry Pi, what looks like perhaps a 3 or a 4.
Right.
That I know that those are roughly $35, give or take a little bit of shipping or tax or whatever. But could you use even one of a smaller one, like a Pi Zero, which are, $5 or $10, depending on whether they're the wireless variant or not, or do you have to use a Pi 3?
Absolutely, you can, theoretically, you can use any model of Raspberry Pi. We cover that in the blog. I think the
Cool.
best one to use is the Raspberry Pi Zero WH. This is the one that's wireless, but it has headers. If you buy a Raspberry Pi Zero, just W without the H, I don't know if you can see the difference here, but it does not have that row of headers. So that means that you would actually have to solder your wires or solder a header on. And I specifically designed this project so that soldering is not necessary. So with that in mind, it's a little bit more. Maybe this one's about $12 or $15, the WH, but it's wireless. It has the headers. You can just slide your pins right onto this, which makes it a really easy build. And you certainly can use the this W, but you would have to do a little bit of light soldering.
Okay, so that's interesting then. Very cool. Thanks for that. So I see something next to you. What is that white block that has even more parts on it than?
Well, so this, as I said before, I started with this as a proof of concept and to start developing the software. And then when I knew what I wanted, I started building this version with parts that I had laying around. I knew I wanted to use that LED tower, but you can't drive an LED tower directly from a Raspberry Pi. So this is what I call a prototyping board. You could actually use this as a kind of cool final build too, because you know, if you like showing all of your exposed parts and showing how cool your build is, you could just leave it in this mode. Now, eventually I did attach the tower here, but I started with parts that I had laying around that I knew would be close to what the final project would be. And those additional parts that you didn't see in the breadboard are the relay board. And that's so that you can drive higher current LEDs. And then of course, to have high current LEDs, these are 12-volt LEDs, similar to the ones in the tower. Of course, they're not as bright, but they have the same characteristics, electrically speaking. So it's a good stand-in for the tower. And then right here, I have just a basic terminal strip, because again, I didn't want the project to require any soldering. So the best way around that is to have, let me see if I can get in a little closer here. If you need a little junction for your wiring, these things are great. I think they're called barrier strips. There's a couple different names for them, terminal strips. And they basically just let you screw wires together.
Yeah,
So
those are typically used in, well, I shouldn't say typically. I've seen them used in audio applications where you're using some speaker wire, and then as you crank down the screw, you get your connection. Yeah, I've seen those.
So yeah, so this kind of ties it all together. Again, no soldering. We have this this type of ribbon cable, which we can talk about what type you need later. And then while I was building this, knowing that I would get an LED tower, the LED tower arrived in the mail. So that's this. So I don't know if you want to talk about the tower itself and what kind of LEDs.
You ordered, I mean, you just simply ordered that online, that was available on Amazon or some other retailer?
Yeah, these are available on Amazon, AliExpress, Adafruit has one.
Oh,
and you know, you would be surprised, but basically it's built for industrial uses, to tell people nearby when a machine is about to start, like maybe a machine that you don't want to be near when it's starting. You see those in industrial videos. And Chris, one of our hardware hackers, he reminded me of the scene in Jurassic Park where they're on the fence that's about to become electrified. They use something similar. So I thought that was a great example.
Okay,
but
makes sense.
The inspiration for the buzzer as well.
It was from Jurassic Park. Okay, so, sounds good. So do they come in so if they're used in industrial settings, then I have to wonder, they probably come in various shapes and sizes. I mean, you could get smaller ones, larger ones, then I imagine.
Yeah, they do come in various sizes. They're standard, they're pretty large usually because they're meant to be seen maybe across a room. But the main variation that they have is in colors. Most of them are green, yellow, and red, but a few of them have blue and purple added in for even more different modes, which you could modify. But let me just show you what you get when you order one of these typically. And we'll do a little unboxing here. Maybe we can get some of that unboxing video audience. put this.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
where's that
well,
affiliate
description.
link, David?
Yeah,
Is it in
hang
the
on a minute.
description?
Hold on a
Where is
minute.
it? Put it in there.
Ooh. So here's
anybody watching know how we could get the unboxing video links?
so you get this beautiful. This is in its pristine state, but to show you what you should expect when you get one of these. Usually it doesn't have the base attached, give you hardware for actually attaching it to something. And then the cool part is the, the base itself. So this just screws on, you thread these wires into the base, screw it together. And then the other end, as you can see, is threaded. So you could put a hole, as I did in here. I just drilled a hole. I think it's a 1/2-inch hole, I believe. And then it just bolts in. They usually give you the hardware to do that. And just a note about the wiring. I don't want people to get scared because it looks like there's a lot of wires coming out of here, but it's really pretty straightforward. There's just one wire for each set of LEDs. So there's a green, red, and yellow wire, and that just apply voltage to that, and it turns on the green, yellow, or red LED. There's a common wire, so that would be your negative, and then your positive would be the other 3. So that's 4 wires right there, and then there's only 1 wire left, and that's just for the buzzer. Most of these have an integrated buzzer because if you are telling people that a gigantic piece of equipment is starting up, you usually want an audible alert as well. So a lot of wires, but actually not that complicated to set up.
Hey, Alan, do you have a link to that specific one? We actually have a community member asking for a specific link.
Yeah, if you want to put a link in the to the blog post.
All I can find is the
if you-
red-green version. If you get a chance
Yes.
later.
Yeah, sure. I can add that in. But our blog post, I believe, has 3 links
Oh, that's right.
to 3 different
Yeah,
versions of
Oh,
it.
they're in the blog post, which
Yeah.
We
is
have-
already in the.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, you can grab the link
Good.
from there.
Right on.
And it would be cool if somebody added the the extra colors for other things. I guess if I did my plane idea, I would have like purple if the space shuttle flew over or something really
I mean,
is there a,
outstanding.
is
I
there
bet kids
a
would love it,
model?
you know?
Is there a
Like they
model
already
that
get
has-
pretty stoked when they see stuff in the sky, let alone like have a
Mhm.
light be like, hey, it's yeah, something really awesome that you like. It's like, oh my gosh, let's go outside and look.
Right.
I have a question for you, Alan.
Yep.
You already have one giant LED stack light set up. What are you gonna do with that second one?
Yeah. Well,
Why do you have 2?
Well, when I'm building something, I usually buy double the parts because you never
Ooh.
know. I've
Pro
had
tip.
issues when I do
Wow.
something called the smoke test, when you turn it on for the first time.
Yeah.
and just in case it catches fire. Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't want to wait another week or 2 to have to redo the project. So, but it's an extra bonus now that I didn't smoke anything. I have these extra parts. I can build another one for some other purpose, or maybe as a gift or present to somebody.
Mhm.
See, I thought maybe you were going to make a giant, like 2-foot tall Allen poster. Because when we were working on this behind the scenes, our designer, Alexandra, posted a version of this. I think it was with the newbie version, like this one right here. But imagine the wiring, a little more, a lot cleaner. It was put over a face of like a parent working from home, and they're like goofy face. And it's like, can you bother dad? And then it was green, yellow, red. I thought that was pretty cool. So I'd imagine this giant Allen size, big poster. It's like, can you bother Allen? And it's like, well, what does the light say? And if you're confused, just buzz him.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that idea. Yeah, there's so many ways you can go with this. I have seen it in a picture frame. Like, you don't have to use these LEDs. Any LED will work, and you can either use the 12-volt version, or if you're just going with the smaller LEDs, you don't even need the relays.
So
Very cool.
can you show off a little bit? How do I turn the lights, or how do you switch them from the red, the yellow, the green? I mean, what is the mechanism for actually setting your status then?
Yeah, sure. I'll show you the web page that we use. It's all web-based. So literally, when you develop one of these and when you finally upload the software, you get a public URL that you can use. It's all built into the Balena Cloud software that we're using for this. But let me do a quick share here, and let's see if we can do this.
While you're doing that, that's all, of course, in the blog post as well. So anybody following along from the audience, as you go through that, the software part of it is in there as well. But let's take a look at this.
Yeah, are you guys seeing the Allen's office?
We sure are.
Okay.
I see red, yellow, and green. Pretty simple.
Yes. So that's the that's the simple idea here. We don't want to make it too complex, but one thing I'll say is that the great thing is that since this is a public URL that you get with each alerter that you build, you could really do this from anywhere, which is great. This is the whole IoT aspect of it. You don't necessarily just have to be alerting somebody in the next room. You could do this around the world if you wanted to put an alert somewhere and then control it remotely. But for our particular purposes, we're doing it like within the next room so that people in the vicinity know what your status is. So it's really just a simple matter of clicking.
Uh-oh, somebody found it.
And then you get this confirmation. This is like two-way communication. This web page uses a WebSocket to communicate with the server that's actually in the LED alerter device itself on the Raspberry Pi. And so every time you change the status, you get the confirmation back. And that's nice in case you're sharing this page with somebody else. That person can also see, well, what's the current status of this light? Oh, I think we have, yes, that was just an external change.
Uh-oh.
I'm pretty sure
that.
So you see, other people are changing it and it's updating on my webpage in real time. I didn't refresh, I didn't touch anything. It just updates the status so I can see currently
that will almost certainly either be Chris or Tomas.
Yeah.
And they'll think they're so funny.
The community wants the link to your device so they can also buzz you at random for the rest of the episode.
Stuck it in the in our chat there, so you can just copy it over.
Yeah.
All right, you heard the man.
You're about to unleash a can of worms, but okay.
All right,
okay.
Well, in case we get DDoS, it's been great talking to everyone. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh boy. And I see Sahaj is on there, and so he'll be sending from India. Anuj is in there. He's in India as well right now. Chris is in the UK. Oh boy.
Yeah, this will go on for a while. You see though in the user interface on the web page, the buzzer is optional. So if you uncheck use buzzer,
well, no, you don't have to worry about that.
You just don't understand people, Alan.
Yeah.
Sahaj already very clearly said, don't forget to check the use the buzzer option.
Every one of those annoying buzzes is coming from somewhere around the world.
Not me.
So that's super cool. I mean, that's really interesting. At least to me, I don't know. I can't speak for the audience, but I like how you have moved from prototype through another iteration and then into a final product. And I mean, I understand, of course, I shouldn't say final product as in, like we're shipping and selling the thing, but the 3 generations of the hardware from prototype to production. And that's something that we talked about actually last week as well on IoT Happy Hour. We had the Balena Fin team on, Carlo and Nico, Anuj, you were on the line as well. And we kind of walked through that process of what that looks like from early hardware iterations to going through, in that particular case, actual certification from the standards bodies to get to a final shipping product. And it's kind of fascinating, and it's actually really time consuming as well. So we learned a lot about it. If anyone in the audience has has a little bit of interest, I would definitely recommend go check out last week's happy hour. It was episode number 6. I can drop the link, or I know, Chris, if you're on there, can you drop the link into chat for last week's episode? And then later that evening, Anuj and I joined an IoT meetup, a virtual one. No, don't worry, we didn't go have a giant get together, but we participated in IoT Pune in India, and Anuj and I did a 2-hour marathon. It's kind of like a full feature length film on prototype to production. And again, walking through how you can take a project from its initial inception, start developing the software, and transitioning to going live and mass deployments. We used balena fins for that, and Anuj built containers locally in India and was able to push them remotely and update my fin here. I'm in Arizona in the Southwest US. So it's pretty cool. So it's something we spent a lot of time on last week. So that was one of the reasons I really wanted to kind of have you show that off, Alan. So thanks for taking us through that journey.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Andrew, have you seen anything else roll in?
No, they just wanted the link to that buzzer, and we gave the people what they wanted.
Yeah,
We
so we're
also
good.
referenced the episodes that you're talking about with the fin and whatnot. I just want to give a quick plug because I do not see this person usually giving us some trash talk in the chat, but our own Rich Bayless just completed a 24-hour marathon. Did anybody catch his live stream?
I knew he was doing it. I did not see his live stream.
I logged in a couple of times and watched him running around his neighborhood.
Yeah.
I logged in for international audience. There's in the UK at 8 p.m. every Thursday, everybody goes outside and claps together for the NHS, for the National Health Service. So it's like an initiative to G up the troops that are going in and trying to help us out with all of this. And Rich is in the UK, and he was running at 8 o'clock on yesterday, Thursday. And so I logged in to sort of see him running around his neighborhood with everybody clapping. I think he did that so that he felt like everybody was clapping him. I felt like that was actually his motivation.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Like that scene from Rocky. I think he was pretending he was Rocky.
Why not?
Yeah.
So behind the premise of it was 24 hours of running. I think it was 3-mile intervals, and then between every interval, he tackled a list of to-dos that he had, and he did it all live. I think all the running was live. Then he'd like go back home and do a chore, take a rest, and then go back and do it.
He didn't live stream cutting the grass. I did look.
No, although I'd watch. I mean,
I'd
live
definitely
stream
watch
grass
that.
cutting is
But
amazing.
he's a software engineer. Was he live streaming as he was writing code as well? Because I mean, that's actually quite popular.
So all proceeds went to a great cause. I think it's Childhood Tumor Trust, which in the UK is that some sort of like cancer related charity.
Yeah.
I tried to find the link. So the link exists, but he hasn't put the video up yet. So the link isn't working at the moment. But it was really neat to look at that, and it overlaid a Garmin map, so you could see him running his loop, and then take a break. And he had commentary and music. It was a very cool thing. It was very inspirational to see a coworker literally do all that in the course of 24 hours. What did I do? I worked, ate, and slept. It's like, oh, Andrew, what more can you do?
Thanks for the reminder. That's exactly what I did. Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Be more Rich.
Come on, Rich. Yeah. Motivate us again when you have the energy to.
Yeah. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions on the LED alerter status, I think we can go ahead and transition over to project number 2 in this week's episode, which is Phil's balena camera TV.
Yeah, we're poor at naming.
Thing.
I'm especially poor at naming, and we've never come up with a good one. I don't think it really needs a name. So kind of the idea behind it, obviously when the pandemic started hitting, definitely in the UK, for me, my thoughts were obviously all around that, and we're very lucky that we're a remote first company and we can all continue to work. and in many ways nothing work-wise has changed for us. But clearly, rather than developing hacky projects, it felt like we all wanted to try and find a way to help in whatever way we could with the pandemic. And clever people like Chris were able to do our Fold for COVID projects that we did a couple of episodes ago.
Yep.
And I didn't really know what I could do, but I was sort of desperate to do something that could help. And a sort of parallel to that, my wife works in the healthcare industry, and she works with lots of people who have neurological conditions and brain injuries, and quite a lot of elderly people as well. And it became apparent that those of us that were so lucky to be able to continue with our lives working, but also because we're so used to video chat, we're so used to doing this sort of thing on conferences, this feels sort of normal to us. And even kind of non-technical people are very used to FaceTiming and whatever else, Zooming. I think Zoom's kind of like become a hell of a lot more popular lately, but definitely like FaceTime and Duo and those sort of things, Skype, that was kind of very easy for us to do. We've all got devices that can do it. But clearly those two worlds sort of came together in my mind, that there's a large community of people that maybe don't even have technology that can do video calls. And even if they did, a lot of them just didn't know how to use it. And I actually heard my wife on the phone to a lot of her customers saying, right, you see that link? The one that starts with a Z, like the last letter of the alphabet, Z, and like trying to talk these people through how to connect. All of these people are very socially isolated, and they haven't got access to the tools or the know-how that we do to try and keep connected with people. So that's kind of where my thinking was going. And along with that, we've already in Balena, we have got a project called Balena Dash, where we're able to make a remotely controlled dashboard, if you like, a kind of web dashboard that you can tell it which URL to display. And so we've used that for a number of things. There's one above, if I can get my fingers correctly, there's one up here that's got that thing that you can just about see as a Pi display, and that's connected to a Raspberry Pi that's running Balena Dash, so I can make that show whatever I want, and that's got a photo slideshow and a calendar that tells my children what they're doing today. But it occurred to me that because we've got a remotely controlled web browser, if we were to put that, instead of putting it in a Pi display, we were to connect that to a TV in a vulnerable person's house through the HDMI cable, then we could display anything on their TV. And if we connected a webcam into that as well, then could we make them a video conference device that they don't need to know how to use, because we could do it for them, or a loved one could do it for them remotely. So that's kind of where the project idea came from. And I think that's kind of, it's key to point out that hardware hackers, sometimes we do clever stuff with code and we write Python and we write this, that and the other. We make distributed systems. Sometimes clever people like Alan do wiring and soldering and stuff. And sometimes monkeys like me just get something and plug it into something else and set it up and try and make it do something else. And that's also sort of part of the remit. So that's what I did. I'll try and share my screen. I set up OBS, but I only did it today so that I could try and show, because I've got a complicated setup. Oh, no, my switch camera's not working, Chris.
Blame Chris. He's not here. Blame him.
Yeah, right.
If it doesn't show,
if it doesn't work, then we'll need to.
I mean, we can talk through it as well. And I also see that we've already posted the link into the YouTube chat. So you can follow along from that guide. It's a very thorough, very well-written guide on the entire project, the hardware needed, you know, the final outcome. So let's see here. Well, we've got two fills now.
I may have worked it out.
Okay.
I'd sort of got it set up earlier, and then when Chris was speaking to me earlier, he told me how to do it a different, clever way. And the clever way, I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't really. So let's see if this works anyway. So hopefully now, if I do this, are you able to see my Balena Cloud dashboard?
Yes.
Wow, we're winning. We're winning.
Yeah.
I'll let you off, Chris.
Everyone.
Yeah,
Baby
right.
steps.
Yeah. I should have just stuck to one you. So in Balena Cloud, I've got lots of applications, not as many as Chris. I've got a bit of envy, but I've got lots. Hide the scales one. I don't want Alex to see the scales one. That's another project that I've.
It's in progress, right?
It's been in
That's
progress
what
for
counts.
about 3 years, I think.
There.
It's passed down from person to person. So I've got Balena Dash. I've got 2 devices in my Balena Dash because, like I said, one of them is that thing that's up there, the Pi display one, and I've got a Pi 4. So in here, you can see, if I zoom in a bit, you can see that what Balena Dash is doing is exposing. It's got a few containers, most of which we don't need to worry about really for this. The main one that we need to think about here is this kiosk, and what it's doing is put in a Chromium browser, and then we can expose it into HDMI or on the Pi display, depending on what you've got connected. And then the main thing that this is doing, because we've got a way of setting environment variables, and they then can configure things within your container. One of the things that we've set up here is this launch URL, and we're able to change what that Chromium, what the browser is displaying remotely by setting this variable. And that's what we're using for Balena Dash to change what's being shown on the dash. The reason it's a device service variable, if anybody in the audience is interested, is the device means that it's only going to change what is being shown on this device, so it's not going to change the other one that's got the Pi display that I showed you earlier. And the fact it's a service variable means that when we change it and the container restarts, it's only going to restart the one that's doing the browser, the kiosk. So it's not going to restart all my containers. My screen really flickery.
Yeah,
just,
for some reason.
it just started. It wasn't until a moment ago.
Oh, I might have to live with it. Alan will distract us with his buzzer while I try and work
Somebody's buzzing now. Great job.
If you need anything during the lull, I've got this covered.
Yeah. I think it's probably my laptop struggling to do too many things at once.
Yeah, mine had the same problem when I attempted to run OBS as well. It's a resource hog.
I tested this the other day, and what I really appreciated was that, I have some family members who are older and struggle with technology. What I thought was amazing is that I could potentially just do all the configuration, both, in the process of doing the project for the first time, but also help out remotely. And all they'd have to do is open up, this package that I'll mail to them that's all cleaned up for them, plug it in. They know how to do that part. They know how to plug in an HDMI cord into their TV, plug in the webcam, and then it's just ready to rock. And I think that magic is amazing for someone who constantly, almost like bi-weekly, has to do parental IT help.
Yeah, parental IT support. I'm very familiar with it as well. So while you're taking a look at that or troubleshooting it a little bit, let me ask a quick question then, which is, it's awesome that you can remotely control and handle the IT support side of it then. What kind of software is it actually running then? I've heard, we've talked about FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, Jitsi is another one I'm familiar with. StreamYard is another. So what did you actually put into the container that is handling the two-way video?
Yeah, so that was kind of the crux of the project, really. Like I was saying, it wasn't about writing different software. It was more about clicking things together and then trying to find a path that would do what I wanted. And what I wanted was to make sure that the Raspberry Pi could handle it. So obviously, although Raspberry Pi 4s are pretty capable devices, they still, they're limited in CPU and memory to some extent, and also in their in the kind of the video decoding that they can do in hardware to make it performant. So really, the crux of the issue is
Hey Phil, I don't mean to interrupt, but can you turn off your share screen?
I'm trying, mate. My CPU is like 99%.
Oh,
and just
he
get
can't
my
even
pointer
turn
to
it
the
off. Oh, this is now we can absolutely blame Chris. This is certainly Chris's fault.
If I could just get my pointer to to the stop share bit, then I think we're rocking.
This is
I
the same
see.
problem that I actually encountered a few weeks ago when I wanted
Don't
to
tar
do
me
a
with your
live
brush.
build.
I've
Yeah.
been mercifully mocking you, and now it's happened to me.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah,
disgusted.
this is what happened to me when I wanted to do that live build of the COVID project, and I fired up OBS, and that was the end of it.
If I
Do
might
you
have to
want to
drop out.
rejoin? Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I
I don't
might
want
need
to
to.
harm anyone who might have, reactions to flickering screens like this.
Yeah, I'll try and leave.
Terrorizing our
And then in the meantime,
audience
we can just
members.
ask Alan more buzzer questions and or listen to the community ping him over and
excellent.
over
But
and
Well,
over
and
wanted to
actually,
again.
say-
let's take a look. Did any questions come in? Let me take a quick glance at chat to see if anything.
No, they
had rolled
haven't.
in. Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
just
do
wanted
want
to
to give
also-
oh, go ahead, Alan.
Oh, no, sorry. I just want to mention, I also built that project of Phil's the other day. And yeah, it was just really interesting to see how all the parts are fit together software wise, and to use Jitsi. And, it just worked, which was really cool. So I can't wait to send a pre-configured package to the grandparents and have a better video chat experience.
Yeah, definitely. And this could be for everyone on the call and in the community. I know that when I was thinking about the project after testing out Phil's original version, I have a grandmother who actually, she has a cell phone, but she doesn't have internet connectivity. And I'm wondering, what 3G, 4G cell capability can I add to it so that I can ship her a card, and just have it work cellularly? Like, even though it wouldn't be the greatest video quality, at least like to a 90-year-old Vietnamese grandmother, she could be like, oh my gosh, like I can see all my grandchildren, right? I can see all my children and whatnot. So I would love to know what over-the-air kind of capabilities we can add to it in a future rev.
Is that a cell phone?
Yes.
Can she create a Wi-Fi hotspot with it, or is it just a pure cell
She's
phone?
not that kind of 90-year-old grandma, unfortunately. Not very with the
So a
iPhone
different
times.
approach would be, I mean, on the Pi, put one of those 4G LTE hats, and
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
add the SIM card directly into the hat. And if you put the whole thing in a case, you might need a little bit larger case. I don't know, but she would never even know.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's exactly it. You're spot on. And that's
Yeah.
something that I would love to experiment with next. So that she has a TV. I mean, the woman loves her dramas. So TV's always on.
So
I figure why not plug that in and she can say hi to her great granddaughter every once in a while.
Yeah, that's
Well,
super
and that
cool.
brings up the core point too, that the Wi-Fi is modifiable, right? So this has and Phil's not here to contradict me, but to be able to
Now's your
Phil's
chance.
here to continue.
to preset or to reset the Wi-Fi configuration remotely, right? So you can test in your own home, and ideally, who doesn't have their parents' Wi-Fi credentials, but you can preload those, or you can adjust them, right?
Yeah, it's got Wi-Fi Connect, which some people may have seen in our other projects. So you can go and stand outside and connect to it. Once the device hasn't got a connection, it detects that itself, and then it opens like an access point that you can connect to with your phone with a captive portal, and then go and put in. And that's like another thing. You could go round to somebody's neighbours and say, is there any chance you could make a guest Wi-Fi, and then put that in and give them a connection that way.
Well, now that folks get a good sense of how it works, was there anything else you need to share your screen with? Because it looks like it's still bugging out. Like,
it's
it'd be
still
cool to
doing
see a
it.
live version.
Yeah, I could definitely try. I might try and do it like a less technical way.
Sure. Take your time.
Yeah, do it the low-tech way. I
But-
would like to see it. If we
I tell you what I was going to
can't-
do. What I was going to do is sort of show that I can change what is shown on the TV, and then change it. But given that that's not working, let me see whether I could just share just one screen and see.
Let's do it. Hashtag
Do it.
hardware hacker life. Sometimes you just gotta wing it.
Yeah, live
Oh,
troubleshooting.
there we go.
Whoa, what
Right,
is that?
So I was going to show you there's like a complicated setup of I've only got so many cameras in the house, and they're both being used, one for this happy hour and one on the actual device. So I've had to get my garden security camera and like
Nice.
stream its IP video feed to VLC and then and like put that into
Don't
OBS.
try this at home.
Yeah, right.
What is this?
But,
Wait a minute. Wait, people could be stealing your vegetables
So
right now.
what you're seeing is my security camera looking at my TV, and you can see that there's a Raspberry Pi next to a model Land Rover. You don't have to have the model Land Rover, but it does help because it's cool. And then on top of the TV is a webcam, just an ordinary USB webcam plugged into there. And because I can remotely change what is on that screen, so I could remotely change it. There's a little bit of lag because it is obviously going over an IP camera, and there's a little bit of pixelation. But I could change it to a picture of a duck if I wanted to. The other thing I could do though, so that's like the balena dash thing that we can then remotely control what's being shown on that screen. But I could drop it into a Jitsi meeting, and that's kind of where we were talking about before I had to drop out. I had to try and find something that was performant on the Raspberry Pi, but meant a vulnerable person or an elderly person or a non-techie didn't have to do anything in order to join the call.
There we go. Look at that.
That's the whole point, that they don't know how to do techie things. So we want to be able to remotely drop them into a meeting. Jitsi is probably a less known video conferencing system, but it backs a lot of the most popular ones in many ways. You don't know it's Jitsi running in the background. And one of the super cool things about it is you just make a pretty URL, and that is your meeting link. And anybody that goes to that URL just joins the meeting. So for our purposes here, you put that into balena dash, and balena dash joins the meeting. So what you can see there is it started a Jitsi meeting. And that's showing the back of my head. You can see I'm bald from all angles. But that's because it's just showing what's on the screen. I've got another browser window that you can't see because I'm not doing OBS, but I'm going to join that same meeting from a different browser.
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, we go. I might bug out again.
Yeah.
This is why we're hacky hour people.
Yeah. We've thought about
Join in.
renaming this to
Join in,
IoT
David. It's
Happy
there.
Hour.
I'm not as bad as you look. It's happening.
There we go.
So in a minute, once CPUs catch up with each other, my laptop's struggling to join the meeting at the same time as doing all of this streaming.
No worries.
Here it
It'll work.
comes.
Right here.
Coming. You're going
For
to see up my
folks
nose.
joining-
Look at that. That's up my nose.
Oh, there we go. For folks joining, this is Phil's video call project, which you can catch on the link we posted in the comments. But basically, he creates a very frictionless experience for folks to plug a Raspberry Pi into the HDMI port of their TV, hook up webcam, and all of a sudden, voila, video calling
And
for
so
anyone of any tech level.
Yeah,
So
that is actually really neat.
we tested it out, and initially I didn't know how useful it was gonna be. Like, was it performant? So we did a bunch of testing, Chris and I, and then Andrew and I, and it was weird that it was actually better in many ways than sort of a normal video call, because normally when you're on a video call like these sort of ones, you're a head bobbing around on the screen, and so it doesn't sort of feel real. And although you and I, or all of us, are very used to that, for somebody who may be elderly or vulnerable and isn't used to being on video conferences, it just doesn't feel normal. It doesn't feel natural, and it's not as socially connecting as sort of seeing the whole person and seeing how they move and seeing them in their own environment. And Chris and I joined each other's living rooms, which is a bit bizarre. I learned Chris has got legs. I'd heard it's true, but I hadn't seen them. But he does have legs. I saw them, and I saw him use his sofa, and I saw what his curtains look like, and it was much more socially connecting experience. I don't know if that makes sense. Him being on my TV, where I see other people that I feel like I know, and seeing his whole body and seeing how he moves and seeing how he sits on his sofa, it was much more connecting. And I really feel like if you were a vulnerable person and going through what we're going through all together at the moment, and you didn't have any video technology, and the only way you had to connect to people was via phone and not seeing anybody more, actually having somebody brought into your living room and knowing that you're being in theirs, it's like the most socially connecting thing we could do for them at the moment.
One thing
Well
I wanted to ask, Phil, is, and so far we've talked about one-on-one, but you could deploy multiple of these, right? And
You could do. I think
like to
it's
different family members.
Yeah, I have a birthday party coming up for the little one. Could you hook us up?
you definitely could do. I think there's no getting away that the Raspberry Pi, even the 4, is a limited device, and it does have hardware acceleration for video decoding, but it's only a certain codec. It's H.264, and not many video conferencing platforms use that anymore. They use other ones like WPA and WP9, and that hasn't got hardware decoding in the Pi. So finding that kind of golden bullet of one that did the right hardware, did the right video encoding, so that the Pi could do it in hardware on the GPU, but not have any kind of clicking to join a meeting or making a user account, all of those things that would be barriers. I spent a long time. I went through a lot of video conferencing, and I cannot find the magic bullet. So the sort of limitation is Jitsi is doing WPA, and so it's being decoded on the CPU. I have a feeling that if you put lots of people in, it's going to be decoding lots of video streams all at the same time, and I reckon performance will probably drop off to potentially unusable. But in hardware hacker world, in Balena Labs, we sort of have this idea of you get something done, you make it work as best you can, you get it out there, and then you grow the community around it, and people make suggestions, and maybe somebody else has heard of a Jitsi that can use the right encoding, or how to make Jitsi use the right encoding, or how we could improve performance and have parties, video parties. It might exist. It just didn't exist within the 2 weeks of me doing endless video conferences with myself, trying to find one that works perfectly.
So that's a good point, because the project is open source, right? Doesn't it live in the Balena Labs GitHub repository? Is that correct?
Yes.
So,
so Balena Dash, it's using Balena Dash, and Balena Dash is in the in the repo, so anybody can go there. And the blog post was released, was that Wednesday night UK time, I think it was.
Yep, correct.
And it's using our cool new deploy to Balena button, so people can just go there and click the button and put it on a device, and take it for a spin, and try and add multiple people, and let me know. But I suspect performance will drop off.
Yeah, anyone.
Shameless plug for the forum time.
I was just
we have a Balena Labs forum section.
Watching,
yeah,
give it a whirl, and then if there are any issues, any bugs, or even just simply how does performance hold up if there's 3 or 4 people, or I mean even more than that, drop it into the forum so we know.
Yeah, that'd be good. And if anybody's got suggestions, things to add to it, that'd be cool. Very
cool. All right. Well, we are right at the top of the hour, so I'm gonna start wrapping us up here. The project, like we said, is very well documented. The link is over here in the YouTube chat, so go check that out. One last quick reminder is that still ongoing is the United Nations Development Program in partnership with Hackster.io, Detect and Protect Challenge. So anyone out there who's got some ideas on how to come up with some homegrown COVID-19 detection or protection projects, by all means, get those applications in. I think they are getting close to announcing a first wave of winners, but it's sort of like this ongoing rolling contest. So you can certainly still get your submissions in. I know that we are contributing some Balena fins to the cause. AWS is contributing credits. I don't recall off the top of my head. There's other hardware and software available as well. So I actually think there's even some prize money available. So go check that out. I'll get the link to that into the chat as well. But that's about it. Let me check for any last questions that have rolled in from the audience. Not seeing anything in there.
I have one more shameless plug.
Do you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, so remember Fold for COVID? Pretty awesome project where you contribute spare compute power to help
sure do remember
University
it.
of Washington researchers. We are almost at 2,900 devices. We could possibly be at 3,000 this weekend. Who knows? But we need your help. So feel free to get it started. Try it out if you haven't, or spread the word.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sitting at foldforcovid.io. And all of the details are there. It's super easy
It
to
might
download.
just be worth saying quickly that anybody that's using an old laptop, which is a way of doing it, we have seen that there's quite a lot of laptops that begin to get provisioned, but then somehow don't get to the point where they're processing data. And I don't know whether people, there's like, I did do it you could go back to one of the previous episodes where we did the Fold for COVID, and I did my laptop in real time, so you can see how I did it. But you put the USB stick in and you flash it, and then there's a point where the flasher shuts down your machine and you need to take your USB stick out and turn it back on. And I have a feeling that some people might just not be knowing that they need to do that step and get to the point where they're actually doing some folding. So hopefully some more people might go and do that now.
Interesting. Thanks. I did see a forum post or two about that. So thanks, Phil, for pointing that out. Yeah. So anyone out there with the laptops, make sure after it does the flash, get the USB stick removed, turn it back on, and you should be good to go. Next week, we've got a guest joining. Should be a really cool conversation. We have the developer advocate from Always AI joining us. His name is Jason. And Always AI is doing some very interesting development work around AI running on edge type devices. So think computer vision, machine learning, object recognition, object detection, those types of applications running on Raspberry Pis and Jets and Nanos in containers. And then so that gets very interesting in that you can combine those types of projects with the Balena cloud platform to roll out to your entire fleets of devices. So you definitely don't want to miss that. Jason will go through some samples, talk about the work that they're doing there. We should have a Balena fin being sent his way, although I don't think he'll have it in time. So we'll probably have to invite him back for a future episode to see what he comes up with there. But definitely don't want to miss that one. So get our shameless plug in here to make sure that you subscribe so you get the notification, ding the bell, and we will see you next week.
See you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye.
So long.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Have fun hacking.
Somebody with the buzzer.